Hey everybody, Guy here from Chit Chat. Thank you so much for continuing to listen. Just got done recording a really fun podcast with our new mayor, Jake Anderson. We had a really, really nice time. We talked about all things St. Cloud, of course. I asked him some questions about kind of where St. Cloud has been and where we're going. I had a brief moment of contemplation around nostalgia in my childhood that I wasn't expecting. And we talked about things like forgetting people's names and how to navigate that and all kinds of other fun things, but really, really fun conversation. I'm just gonna lay it out here, just at the front end as you jump in. I'm really thankful that Mayor Anderson is here, and I believe in him, and I'm excited for what's coming in St. Cloud. I'm excited for kind of just the energy and the direction that I feel like we're headed, and I just want to be a small part of pushing that thing forward. And so a lot of the conversation was kind of about that, and I'm just thankful to have Jake in the mix, pushing and helping. So thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. Mr. Mayor, welcome. Thanks for coming and joining us on the podcast. Really great to see you today.
Appreciate the invite and being on here today.
And just for, as we continue on the podcast, I should refer to you as Mr. Mayor every single time?
You can just call me Jake.
Okay, Jake. Okay, good.
That's better. Still a little uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, Mayor. I suppose. How many days has it been now?
It's been since Monday the 13th, so just over a week.
All right. Well, how has your first week of being mayor, how's it gone?
It's been an interesting experience, a learning experience. A ton of staff meetings, meeting with leadership, as well as community meetings, various groups. In fact, just yesterday, took a tour of the various homeless shelters in our community.
Really?
A Place of Hope Salvation Army, Lincoln Center, to get a better understanding of their operations, the challenges they face. So things like that, and then just internal things like discussing capital improvement projects and what 26 through 30 and beyond look like. Yeah. So a lot of this, that, the other thing. And not to mention, we're also recruiting a city administrator. So have been transitioning out the current, who ends at the end of this week, and then identifying an interim, and then identifying what that process will look like to fill that. So in addition, met with area mayors. We're going to do that on an annual monthly basis.
That's really great.
Just to try to collaborate more and figure out what we can do to work together.
That's really fun. I got to photograph for Chamber, the Business Central magazine, the outgoing mayors. I don't know if you saw the Business Central, but it was St. Cloud, St. Joe, Waite Park, and Sauk Rapids. It was the four of them. And being with them for that little photo shoot was actually really, really fun. They were, they're all on their way out. And so they're all like a little giggly and like kind of happy. But there was something about just like hearing them communicate with each other. There's this kind of knowing that like they only can have with each other, in that the burden that they bear and the things that they're doing, like the only other one-to-one comparison is another mayor, and so just like watching them kind of communicate with each other was really fun and kind of special. It kind of felt like it was just like a fun little fly on the wall moment watching them. There's like an understanding to the trials and the things that they were walking through. It was very fascinating. And so I'm sure in the, like watching them do it on their way out, I'm sure in the present that there's great value in getting all the different mayors together. I think it's a neat idea. Well done.
Yeah, it's something that I brought up. I met with the mayor of Sartell before I took office. We had coffee and kind of discussed that. Like, we need to work together in a more collaborative manner. And to your point, there's a quote, and I think it was a Louisville, Kentucky,
there you go. Yeah.
Mayor. He called being mayor the loneliest job in the world, because there's not a lot of folks in that brother or sisterhood. So to that point, I went to a mayor-elect program put on at Kennedy Harvard, or Harvard Kennedy School of Government, rather, that brought together new mayors from all over the country, from Mesa, Arizona, San Francisco, Sacramento, Clearwater, Florida, just all over the country. So we could kind of discuss what it's like to be mayor. Things as boring as how to manage your time, but then also how to respond to things that come up and challenges that were not expected, and just strategies. And then the main foundation for it was to create better working relationships between mayors, so that when we all inevitably face a crisis, there's folks you can reach out to, right? To be like, hey,
what did you do?
What did you do?
Yeah.
Did you handle this well, or what would you have done differently? So it is really it's a unique role to be a mayor. Especially to be a strong mayor like St. Cloud has. So we're a little different in just the way the mayors operate. But at the end of the day, a citizen doesn't know the difference between a weak mayor or a strong mayor.
And maybe for our listeners, would you just tell us what is a strong mayor and how many cities in Minnesota have a strong mayor system?
I'll take the second part first. There's 4 of us. It's Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and St. Cloud. Minneapolis was actually the newest one. That was just a few years ago.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so the primary difference between a weak and strong mayor is typically in a weak mayor system, the mayor sits on the city council. He's a voting member of the council. He runs the meetings. He serves essentially like a city council president.
Yep.
There's a city manager. That person essentially runs everything. But everything is essentially run by council, with the mayor being, I think they may get 2 votes. There's some tie-breaking vote that they offer. Versus a strong mayor, I do not have a voting role on the city council. I do have veto powers. So if the council approves something, I can veto it. I directly have a report to the city administrator, and the city administrator coordinates everything. So in essence, I'm the CEO of St. Cloud. The council is sort of a board of directors. And then your city administrator is really your chief operating officer.
Except you don't serve at the behest of the board.
Correct.
You
I
serve at the behest
of the people. Correct.
Yeah.
So it's a quasi board of directors, but that's their role is oversight. Their role is to adopt a budget. My role is to develop a budget. Obviously, with staff, I'm not going to sit down myself with a pencil and write a budget out. But you get the point.
For sure. And then for the rest of the city staff, for city staff, how much oversight over all of those positions and over all those roles do you have in our strong mayoral system? And then do you have in a weak mayor system, is it similar or is it different?
Sure. Technically, I have oversight of all employees.
Everything.
Now, obviously, there's civil service and there's other things and union protections, et cetera. But theoretically, I'm the ultimate authority for the city. Yeah.
Yep.
Versus in a weak mayor system, city manager would have that power, and I think at times that would actually revert back to council to determine the final action.
Yeah.
But significantly less power in a weak mayor system for a mayor.
How long was this the mayor-elect training thing? How was it a week long?
It was 3 days.
3 days.
Yep. It was early December in Boston.
Nice.
So.
And then what percentage of the mayors that were there were strong mayor?
That's a good question. There weren't that many.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, even large cities have a lot. There's a lot of weak mayors.
Really? I would have guessed that for Minnesota and its size, maybe there's only 4, but like on the coast where the cities are much bigger, maybe that there'd be much more.
It was a mix of those. We never actually got into it because even there's different forms, right? Some have trying to think how to say this. Some of the city administrator roles known as the chief of staff, Boston, for example, they're sort of administrators more or less, the chief of staff.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, weak mayor, strong mayor, like I said before, a citizen still comes up to you as you're the mayor, right? So most folks
don't know
and don't care.
Yeah.
And frankly, I don't necessarily blame them because there's a lot you can learn in this world and a lot of things you can spend your time on. And studying how your local government is actually configured, or structured is probably different than why is this pothole not fixed or why can't they develop X?
Yeah.
So
I've heard you speak a number of times now, or a couple of times, and I'm excited about what you want to do in our community. I think there's a lot of, just in general, not just with you, but just in general, it feels like there's a lot of momentum in our community right now. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like and how, we can all join the others that are continue to work hard in our community to make Central Minnesota and St. Cloud specifically better. I had a question for you in relationship to that. You're coming behind Mayor Kleiss, who was here for a long time, longest mayor in the history of St. Cloud, which is incredible. What would you say? What is one of the best things that Mayor Kleiss is leaving behind? What do you think is one of the things that he did the best? And what's one thing that you're kind of hoping to make a change in as you kind of step in behind him and you're filling his shoes, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, I try to be careful to say not filling shoes, right?
Yeah, okay.
I'll walk my own path. I'll take my own steps. Dave's real strengths were probably the best retail politician I've ever seen in terms of glad handing and being at things and being out there and being a real ambassador for the city. And those are the hardest steps to fill, in my opinion, because I'm not necessarily like that, right?
Sure.
Although I'm tall, I don't need to be front and center of things.
Well, I think tall people, they're usually not front and center, right? It's usually like, we're going to have you in the back row.
Exactly. First, I just line up right in the back, right? I know right where I'm going. And I think one of the challenges you face when you serve for 20 years, you form relationships, but you also fray relationships. And people's relationships evolve over time.
Yeah.
And so areas where you may have been really strong before, collaborating with neighboring cities, that sort of thing, especially as mayors change as well, can begin to get a little tired and need a little reinvigoration. So what I'm hoping to do is kind of the boring stuff, but behind the scenes. What can we do to collaborate better, whether that's with neighboring cities, organizations, groups, to figure out what it is we can do to make St. Cloud an even better place. And there is a lot of momentum. The thing that I challenge folks that are, well, there's two buckets here. First bucket is the naysayers, right? The negative Nellies. I don't have time for them. The folks that constantly demean St. Cloud.
They just want something to throw rocks at.
Yeah, they're mad, right? There's like a meme, right, where somebody's holding a piece of paper and they're like, I have a solution. I don't want a solution. I want to be mad. It reminds me a lot of that. So I try to ignore that. But those groups and those folks that are really trying to do better for our community, what I've said as an elected official now is we can all work together, but at a certain point you have to come with an ask, right? Like, what are you asking for? We have issues around affordable housing and how workforce housing and things of that nature. People will come to the city and say, fix my issue. And I counter that with, what am I fixing? You know, what can I help you with? Come with specific asks. If it's homelessness, help us with this. Okay, again, what is your specific ask? Because if we can at least agree on what you're asking about, maybe I'm not agreeing to it, we can then begin formulating solutions around it. So many of our challenges and problems, we just talk so globally about a problem and so generally that we don't start digging down into it. So that's an area that I really hope to work on, is fostering that, because I view a lot of my role as mayor is facilitating. It's not me fixing it, but me getting you in touch with some other group or some other organization or some other person to say, I think this person can help you out. What kind of synergies can you build together?
And you have a big staff, right? Like, of course it's not you. Of course, it can't be you, right?
It definitely shouldn't be me, right? I'm not an expert in any of those fields.
And why on earth would you have a really great staff if it was always going to be you? But I like that, trying to put people in touch with the people that can help and be a part of making it better.
Government can get in the way of a lot of things. My role is to try to not get in the way of opportunities, conversations, and things that need to happen for momentum to build. So I'm not saying Mayor Kleiss did that. I'm not saying anybody else did that. But that's something that I think we can just improve on all the time, is what can we do to operate better? What can we do to be more efficient? And what can we do to actually make that progress that we all seek out?
We've been downtown now for like 6 months. I mean, technically our other spot is downtown. Cooper is
I'll call it downtown adjacent.
Right. But you know, like being like smack dab in the middle of downtown now for like 6 months, and we have absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. Clearly there continue to be challenges, you know, and I think one of the last meetings that you and I were at, we talked a little bit about this, and I want to continue to be a part of helping downtown thrive and succeed. We've done a piece, right? We've come down here. What else can we do? Nostalgia is a powerful and very mean drug, right?
Right.
When I'm thinking about like the downtown, like the thing that I'm comparing our current downtown against is the downtown of my childhood. Yeah. So like, full disclosure, there is like the rose-colored glasses of just like, I was becoming an adult for the first time. I was driving myself, and my friends and I would meet at, you know, the meeting grounds, or we'd go see a concert at the Java Joint. You know, like, these are fun times anyway. So there's for sure some of that attached to it. Maybe half of the buildings downtown were also empty then. You know, like it could be. I just don't remember that. But now, as an adult down here, you know, like I'm aware of more of that. What can we do to be a part of continuing to make downtown better? And do you think, from what you know or what you've seen, do you think downtown is it different than it was in 2000 and 2004? Is it worse? Is there more occupancy issues? Or, just help me understand maybe what's happening in downtown and how can we make it better?
Sure. I think St. Cloud downtown specifically has changed a lot. There were a lot of vacancies back then. I mean, when you're describing the Java Joint and those, right? If you recall, just 10 years before that, there was the Mall Germain, and that they ended up tearing it out, right, because it was so unsuccessful, and all those businesses said we're landlocked, nobody comes in here. The interesting thing about that is today pedestrian malls and plazas are kind of the in thing.
They're kind of the rage.
So there was an idea at some point that we should redo that, and I thought we tried it once.
Memory is so fickle.
We did try that, but I do think it's different. Do we have higher vacancies than we did that? I don't know.
Right.
I remember there would be businesses constantly revolving. I remember an old pet store down here, and it was right, I think, where the game shop used to be on the same block just across the street here. There's no pet shops anymore, right? There's no pet stores. I mean, coffee houses kind of come and go a little bit, right? That's turned into a very fickle market where, depending on the avenue that you're in, really based on location. We had meters back then, right? There were meters.
Yeah. Yep.
People talk way more about the meters today than they did. And again, I think people just gravitate towards certain things and they become the
talking points,
right? And it's like, okay. But, we've also seen an evolution. We didn't have Capital One back then, and they obviously came and went. So the workforce sort of changed in what we were trying to do down here. So we've seen that evolution. The other thing is just, quite frankly, retail in general has changed, right? We don't see the need for as many commerce shops unless you can appeal to a specific boutique. Or be a mega warehouse.
Right.
Those seem to be the extremes. The extremes, because otherwise people just buy things online, which I'm just as guilty as anyone. I mean, as soon as you put an app on a phone and you can just, I can buy that. And
it shows up to my house.
Yeah, and I don't have to do anything. This is amazing.
Yeah.
But to your other point, right, of what can folks be doing that are downtown, especially when they're downtown, because you have more skin in the game than others. We all have skin in the game. We need a successful downtown. And I think you've been parts of these. Get involved in organizations that are working together on downtown things to focus on it, because it's one thing to try to manage this and go out alone. It's another thing to be in a raft with a bunch of others.
Yeah. Not
to mention when you collaborate with others, you come up with different ideas and things you're not thinking about, right? Like, it would be really helpful to do X, or let's take parking.
Yeah.
Let's just handle that one straight on. We're not going to come up with a solution, but solutions are devised by discussing, right? What are the needs and what are the opinions? Some people want free parking everywhere, take the meters out, etc. Other people say leave it as it is. Well, there's a happy medium that I've heard, right, which was evenings and weekends. But there's caveats with that. So how do we navigate that? And what specifically can we talk about? And, the underlying question is always, how much does parking cost?
Yeah.
And it's the parking ramps we have still have debt on them. So we're paying about $350,000 a year on debt on those ramps. So there's two ways to recoup that. Property taxpayers or through user fees, through meters. So those are the conversations we need to have to figure out what's that happy medium.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be happy with all the answers, right? That this is the globally, I think everybody could agree we're never going to agree on it.
Yeah.
But I think we can tackle parts of it to say, okay, it's better than it was. And that's really what I would strive for. So I didn't want to wander down parking pity party, but
we're here.
It happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that is so valuable in a good leader, and I think that Mayor Kleiss did this well, that he always felt accessible and that there was a kind of transparency to conversation. Like if you wanted to ask him a question, he made himself available in a whole bunch of ways. And even for stuff like this, even if like to your point of like, if people don't agree, if it feels like there was a reasoned response or, this decision, the direction we're going is reasoned, even if I disagree with you, but if you lay out a reason and then make yourself available for conversation, I hope that those two things, here's why we're doing this thing. And if you want to talk to me, like, here's a way to get in touch with me, that will hopefully pull the temperature down on some of the like extreme. And so I think Mayor Kleiss did that well. I would encourage you. I've seen you out and about, and I've seen what you're already doing. And so I would just encourage you, just keep doing those things, because I think people that want to complain and kind of do that thing, I think we can de-escalate that, I think is the right word, just by making ourselves available for that.
I think St. John's rather is they either have a program or it's a focus on essentially tempered discourse, right? How can we have meaningful conversations when we disagree? Because so often what you see nationally is folks that refuse to listen to each other.
Yeah.
They stop talking because they're thinking of what they want to say next.
Yeah.
They're not listening to what the person's saying. They're listening to how they want to respond and not take into account anything that they're saying or any position, or try to fundamentally understand where somebody's coming from. And even going back to parking or any other local type issue, my job as an elected official and my job as a good person, right, is to understand where folks are coming from and what the concerns are, and make a decision based on that and lay out the reasons for that, and also then get the feedback on it. Because there's times that everybody has a prejudice or everybody goes into something with a preconceived notion. it's those who are willing to listen and willing to modify or adjust or even accept certain conditions to say, you know what, I hear your point. I wasn't thinking about that. Let me figure out how that can factor in so that we can at least attempt to address what it is you're bringing up for an issue and or solution. And to me, it's always easier if people come forward with solutions, right?
Yeah.
Here's my problem. I would like to do this. As opposed to, here's my problem. You fix it, right? That's a lot harder because I could fix it in any number of ways depending on what you're presenting me, right? And then you're going to tell me, well, I don't like that solution. Like, well, that would have been a helpful thing to know, right? Like, we
Give
can
me
do
more
this.
information.
Yeah, I need more information. And this is probably because of my IT background, doing a lot of systems analysis work and process analysis to be like, why do we do this step? And what is this? And folks seem to often have a hard time releasing information or they undershare, right? They'll overshare things that don't matter and undershare vital pieces of information that's like, well, that would have been good to know.
Yeah.
But no, I think being transparent, being accessible is one of the things I hope to be very good at.
I mean, from what I've already seen of your short tenure, and even while you were mayoral elect, just like in the run-up, you seem like you're doing a really, really good job at making yourself available and being transparent. So keep up the good work.
think where you're not going to see me as accessible is on social media, and that's just generally the way I've been.
Yeah.
That's more of a personal thing over the past 2-3 years where it's just there's so much negative energy and it all leads to is fighting and people are all keyboard warriors and everybody's brave. And I'd rather have a disagreement with somebody face to face or in a meeting than trading comments on Instagram or Facebook. Like, it's pointless. As soon as you drop down to that level where you're arguing with somebody, you've already lost, right? You can't argue with stupid. Okay? If you're arguing with stupid, you're just stupid too. And I think we've all run into that where you're just talking to someone and you're like, I think this conversation could be over, right?
And I know that, like, if and when I basically have almost no online. I do LinkedIn. I jumped into LinkedIn recently. But as far as the other ones are concerned, I haven't been there in a long time. But if and when I have wanted to, like, respond, I'm not bringing my best either. Like, the way I'm going about this is not great either. And then whatever's about to come back at me is also for sure not great. So yeah, the mode in which we have those conversations and have that disagreement is really important.
If you look at the kind of the evolution of people and divide, right? One of the things that I think was pointed out, Jonathan Haidt, who's a doctor, I don't know if you're familiar with him, talked a lot about what social media did. And when you introduced the like button on Facebook, it started driving depression rates amongst kids, especially adolescent girls and teenage girls. That's not good. And so those folks are all now older, right? And they grew up in that culture of just talk smack on social media. And they've continued to do it as adults. And, soon they'll have kids. And I hope that they don't teach that same lesson. We do have to get to a place where social media was supposed to be fun, right? Now, if you go back to the origin of Facebook, it wasn't designed to be fun, right? It was basically hot or not, right? Wasn't that
I think so.
The precipice or letter book or something he called it? It's like Instagram. If you're on Instagram, you should be taking pictures and doing funny things. Why are you putting things that are either hateful or divisive? Keep it lighthearted. And it's so easy to tell people, but like there's things you can just do. LinkedIn kind of has wandered in this a little bit, right? Where LinkedIn was really supposed to be for professionals. But then it started turning into this other stuff where you're like, this is now moving down into the path that all the other ones have wandered down.
It's just on a delay.
Professionally upgrading what they're seeing on Facebook. Because I've seen comments and people post and you're like, why did you just say congratulations. Why are you talking? Why did you say anything negative? Right? This is not, you don't need to do it. And you don't need to do it. Nothing prevents you from saying a nice thing. Nothing prevents you also from saying a bad thing. So keep that in mind. Just don't say the bad. Why ruin someone else's day? Just because you're probably having a bad one yourself.
Okay, so you're not going to be highly available on social media.
Correct.
Where can we kind of find you? Where can we engage with you? If it's not social media, which I applaud you for, I think that's great that you're not there. But where and how can people communicate with you?
I mean, the simplest ones are just emails.
Yeah, great.
I'm very accessible that way. I've met with various groups. I attend community functions and larger community things. So if you see me there,
you're easy to spot.
I'm
you're
there.
Easy to spot.
I'm not. No longer can I sneak around the world as the shortest tall guy.
Yeah,
it's an interesting question because people call me, they email me.
That's great.
Those are the ways that I'm accessible. And if you want to have a conversation, we're walking. I'm always willing to stop, provided I'm not carrying much stuff or in the middle of something. But no, I plan on being out at different things and different groups and activities and seeing folks and giving them an opportunity. And I'll be announcing some town halls and things we'll be doing that way so folks want to come down. I'm not going to do them one every week. But we'll get them a little more coordinated. And what I intend to do with those, again, is kind of go out to the community to be like, we're going to be at this location or here or to this group. Again, I want to go to people. I don't want them having to come to me.
Sure. Could someone like host a town hall? Like at their business, if they wanted to like be a part of like corralling an audience and doing that?
Yeah, that definitely.
That could be kind of fun. All right. Story is the driving force for us here at Switchboard. Story is also the reason that Chit Chat exists. We tell stories of the people around us through photos, videos, branding, and websites. Story helps us find meaning, and it draws a community together, and we would love to help tell your story. You can find us at www.switchboard.mn. We would love to meet you. We'd love to talk with you and learn more about the story that you are trying to tell and how our story-driven marketing tools can help you communicate better. Can't wait to talk to you soon. So, obviously before you threw your hat into the ring, you had the pleasure of just like walking through our community just like everybody else with people you know and people you don't know. And the vast majority of people that I see have no clue anything about me, and they for sure don't have any thoughts about me because they don't know me. You are now, you're not in that spot anymore. The likelihood of people recognizing you is substantially higher. The likelihood of people having a strong opinion about you, even though they've never met you before, is substantially higher than when you're just a normie like me. How have you kind of navigated? I know you're only a week in, but, there was months leading up to it where you were, in the public eye. How has that been in the last couple of months for you and for your family as well?
Yeah, so it's been an adjustment. My wife Rachel actually commented to me one day because we were somewhere and 4 or 5 different people came up to me and a few of them were like, "I voted for you." Actually, everyone said they voted for me. So based on the number of people that told me they voted for me versus the number that actually did vote for me, I 85% of everybody. But no, it's one of those things you just have to deal with, and you have to have a tough skin, and you have to be able to just handle people either liking you or not liking you.
Have you had that? Has anyone come up to you and like done the opposite of like, "I didn't vote for you and here's why"? Has that thing happened yet?
Not yet. All right, I expect it'll be coming.
I hope it doesn't.
Me too.
I hope it doesn't.
I think that those things, I'm early enough along, right, where I haven't screwed anything up yet,
there you go.
or perceived to have screwed anything up. And I'm not going to operate as a mayor of trying to just appease people, right, and make sure that they like me. Will you like me?
Yeah.
I want people to respect.
That's the best way to get nothing done.
Yeah, exactly. So I want people, regardless, and this goes to an earlier point, right? Regardless of the decisions that are made, I'm going to lay out action and justification for why. And you can disagree with the justification, and that'll be fine, but just expect that. And you don't have to like me. I'd like you to like me, but that's everybody.
It's a bonus.
Yeah, it's a bonus. But you can be respectful even if you don't like somebody, and I think that's the biggest thing. But yeah, it's definitely a weird experience now when I go and I'll be honest, I'm terrible with names. And sometimes I'm good with like environment, right? Like I know this person from somewhere, but I'm just trying to put their face where it is. And other people will come up to me, and they're like, "Oh, hey, Jake." And so I got to play the,
"Hey.
Oh, hey, buddy." Hey, pal.
I'm going to tell you about how I approach that thing. And I'm going to take a little risk because I'm doing it. I'm going to say it here in front of front of everybody, which is going to make the little trick go away. But it's not uncommon for me to be in that situation as well. In that, as a photographer, there are times when I'm photographing an entire team of people. We're together for an hour or something like that, and there's one of me. My name's Guy, so it's weird and kind of easy to remember. Right. And I'm looking at 20 people, and maybe I got everybody's names quick, but I'm not able to memorize all of them in that spot. And then so I might be out somewhere, and someone's like, "Hey, Guy." And usually I can remember where they're from. Like I remember something about them, which is helpful. But if I'm with my wife,
oh, there you go.
If I'm with my wife, I will greet them. "Hey, how you doing?" And and if I can remember something, "Oh yeah, how's your work?" Or what try to show them like I do know who you are, that kind of thing. And then my wife, this is the cue, and she's just an absolute champ. I mean, she's incredible in so many ways, but her cue then is she introduces herself, okay? And she said she kind of like it's almost like she's throwing me under the bus a little bit. Like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm Cassie. I'm Guy's wife. And then they say, oh, hi. Yeah, I'm Ben, with so-and-so. And then I say, oh, and then I'm apologizing, not for not knowing Ben's name,
for not
introducing, because I got caught up in the conversation. Right. And so I remember the first time that we did that, she was like, why didn't you introduce me? And I was like, I didn't know their name. And that felt so much worse. And so now we have this little 1-2 punch. So hypothetically, Rachel, right?
Yeah.
You guys can use that where
I like it.
Yeah.
I've actually used something like that unintentionally and just been because I'm really bad about introducing people to other people, right?
Okay.
From high school to college to wherever, right? To be sitting around talking to somebody and buddy sits down and I never say the name. And usually it's kind of a guy thing, right?
Sure.
It seems that it's always been women are more offended when you don't introduce them, right?
Okay.
That they're, at least my experience.
Sure.
There's probably some guys too that get offended, but it's just generally been more of a woman thing. But you're supposed to, when you shake somebody's hand, say their name 3 times, right? Like, oh,
yeah.
And so it's imprinted in your head. Uh-huh. Well, then I get so focused on saying it 3 times that now I'm forgetting that. And yeah, it's just a series of awkwardness. Mm-hmm. It's easiest when you work with like police or fire because they got the badge.
The badge,
right? Or somewhere where somebody can wear a name, or maybe they've got their name engraved into their into their
chamber
jackets.
Is great because everybody wears everybody wears their name tag, which is great for learning names because like just every week you see people with a name tag on. It helps a lot.
I hate to say this, but I'm also really bad about mispronouncing names and then having that name in my head incorrectly forever, where it's never coming out. So I've made it a point now, especially if I see it emailed or texted, to have them say their name before I say it out loud, because 9 out of 10 times I'm going to say it wrong, and then forever it's going to be incorrect. In fact, I knew a girl in college. This is not even mispronouncing. Her name was Teresa. I called her Tracy, and I kept calling her Tracy. And so then I just started calling her Tracy Teresa. Uh-huh. So I'm like, and then I couldn't remember what was the actual name.
And then which one?
I'm like, oh.
I remember there's a problem here. I just don't remember the solve to the problem.
Oh, no. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll go on the other side of the street.
I walked into, I'm gonna try to be careful to give what happened without enough details that it could come back at me. But I showed up to a store, and there was a young guy behind the counter, and there was like an older guy, there was like a kid, looked like maybe like a high school or college age kid behind the counter, and then a dude who was maybe like my age or a little older, leaning against the counter, like kind of chatting with the kid. And I walked in, and this guy goes, "Hey guy, how you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, hey." And then he kept talking to me like I knew him, which is fine. And then I just did the thing where like I realized like I could just play along here, but I think this is going to be longer than it.
Yeah, Seinfeld.
I made the decision to just say like, "I'm so sorry. Would you just remind me? Just remind me what your name is, right?" Like I did that thing rather than try to like coast by myself, hoping to figure out. So I just did I tried to pull the Band-Aid off quick. "Hey, I'm so sorry. Just remind me." And then he killed me for that. He was like, "You don't remember me?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I meet a lot of people. Could you just help me?" And then he looks across the counter to the kid and he's like, "Well, don't you remember him?" And I was like, "Again, I'm so sorry. Can you help me?" And then he still refuses to give me his name. And so I just turned we're just standing there quietly. He refuses to give me his name. He's making me feel bad for it. I just needed this thing. I don't even want to say what kind of store it was. And so I just turned to the kid. I said, "I'm really sorry. Can I just check out now?" Like I didn't know what else to do. And then he finally goes, "Well, my name's so-and-so and I'm, associated with such and such." But he made it so awkward. He made it so uncomfortable. I apologized that I didn't know his name. Just do me a favor. What's your name? So that in general, I mean, that was one of the worst ones I've ever had. But in general, this like, "Do you remember who I am" thing, it's so hard. And on the flip side of that, I never want to be that. So when I go and if I run into somebody and I think there's even a remote chance that they don't know who I am, like we haven't hugged yet, we don't know each other well, I will often say, like if I know their name, again, let's use Ben. "Hey Ben, how you doing? I'm Guy from Switchboard." So like I do that thing often enough that it is not uncommon for someone to be like, "Guy, I know who you are. You can stop using my name." And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I would much rather this thing than have the worst case scenario of me like putting them in like this weird, awkward spot where they don't know who I am and they're trying to do that thing that I hate doing. So anyway, if you're really good at names, be gracious, be generous to people that maybe aren't great at names or meet a lot of people.
Or you wander into a Larry David moment, right?
Yeah.
That's a total curve with the worst case scenario. And you know what? You were trying to be the better person, right? To do we don't need to do the song and dance of me trying to figure it out and just small talk. And I'm just just tell me your name.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to play this game. I did not anticipate it going this way. I guess I don't need whatever I was going to buy.
Yeah. I had a friend, we were working on a project, and he was waiting for the thing that I was needing to buy. And so I had to push through because there was a need for the thing I was buying. Whew. Anyway, was not expecting for all that to come out today. I feel a little bit weird about that.
Well, it's like therapy sometimes.
That's right. That's right. Mr. Mayor, what would you say are some of the very best things that St. Cloud has to offer? And what I don't mean is we have Munsinger Garden, which is really, really pretty. And the Mississippi, it's beautiful. And, I'm not really talking about that, about our people and our culture and what makes us special, what makes us unique.
Sure. I think there's a geographic component, right? Close enough to the cities and close enough to Lake Country. So that's just physical advantage.
Yep.
But I do think our strength comes through our diversity, right? We're a growing, diverse community, right? We have a large East African immigrant population that's been settling here. We're quite diverse with ages, right? Even if you look at our census, we have quite a bit of young and quite a bit of old and a smidgen in the middle, I guess.
Yes. Do you know
portions, but
in the demographic breakdowns, what's the largest age?
I believe the largest age is the 18 to 24, but part of that gets
colleges and stuff.
Colleges, yeah.
Got it.
I think coupled with our people is we have a lot of strong organizations, right? Whether it's the chamber, whether it's Rotary, whether it's things of those natures, the real go-getters and the do something people.
Yeah.
And you feel a lot of motivation, a lot of energy around that, right? I think it's beneficial to have the universities that we have here, right? And our healthcare is amazing, just being a regional center for that. I think it's that momentum and that energy. The same things that I like about St. Cloud, our people, there are other people that don't like that about St. Cloud, right?
Sure.
They're nostalgic, right? They liked St. Cloud in the 70s.
How it used to be.
Yeah, back in the day, right? When everything was perfect with their rose-colored glasses. But I truly think it is the talent that we have here and the interesting people. I mean, there's a lot of interesting people. Now, granted, you could probably go anywhere and be like, there's a lot of interesting people. But I'm sure you can go places and you're like, there's a lot of boring people here. I look at some of this Maple Grove as kind of being a fairly homogenistic.
Sure.
I have a certain, and maybe it's probably wrong. I'm stereotyping what Maple Grove people are like, but
right now the mayor of Maple Grove is sitting on a podcast saying, "Our people, man, we are so cool and so great."
And I'm not knocking, right?
I know.
It's a suburban lifestyle,
for sure.
Right? So there's a certain thing, and just like you'd expect differently from folks that live in the North Loop of Minneapolis to be different than the folks that live out in St. Louis Park or Rogers or even here in St. Cloud.
Yeah.
And I even look at the way that our communities are so much different between Sauk Rapids, Sartell, and St. Cloud, and even Wade Park.
In one area, there's
to me, Sauk Rapids is always kind of that blue collar, kind of small town feel. Sartell's like the suburban feel, right?
Yeah.
It's very suburban. Yeah. That's where you're from, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I had a quarter for every time I have been called a cake eater just because I grew up in Sartell. So, yeah, it's this for sure the suburban feel. And, yeah.
And then St. Cloud has just been kind of whatever, kind of a variety of things, right? I don't know how to define St. Cloud other than it's always been kind of the center of things, right? Whether it's our downtown or whether it's things. And obviously Sauk Rapids used to be until, tornado tears it down in 1906, and then they go, all right, let's go west of the river. Yeah. It's a little south. Also unique in that we have so many communities situated around it, right? A lot of times you would, like Rochester is really just Rochester. I'm sure there's a small neighboring city that I'm forgetting, but nobody knows the name of it. It's mainly Rochester and Olmsted County. You have St. Cloud again, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, the three counties. So just that alone presents a lot of unique opportunities. And it's true even if like you're a business or in creative fields, right? You can kind of pick where you want to go. I think St. Cloud, in my opinion, if you look at the number of marketing agencies, that type of thing, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Fewer in Sartell and Sauk Rapids. But if you go to, let's say, we'll take St. Joe's as an example, right? Take their downtown. A lot of unique things going on down there. Really cool things.
What up, Shannon?
Whether it's Crew or Bad Habit. And those were kind of the foundational pieces. But the point is, each city has their own strengths and what they're appealing to. And so I'll take St. Joe's downtown and compare it to St. Cloud's. we shouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
What St. Joe is doing is unique to St. Joe.
That's right.
They should keep doing what they're doing. St. Cloud needs to forge its own path of what we want to accomplish and what folks that want to come in from the outside want to accomplish and create that environment. I mentioned this before. I picture East St. Germain. Have you been to Lincoln Park, Duluth?
Yeah.
I kind of vision East St. Cloud being a lot like a Lincoln Park, which would require some public investments, right, to create some of those spaces. But then it's a matter of the private sector filling it in. And there is some energy over there for development too. So it's kind of identifying what your strengths are and then working forward. So that was a really long, meandering answer.
It's great.
But I just think there's a lot of potential in our community. And it's how do we tap that and how do we leverage it best?
Over the course of the next year, what do you think will be one of the largest challenges that we will have to kind of face or kind of take head on in our community?
The biggest one is going to be our comprehensive plan update, right? And specifically targeting downtown. And this is scheduled to start in March. Identifying what that's going to look like for the Stearns County campus, right? With the Justice Center movement.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing to have happen, right? That's a significant footprint.
Yeah.
But it's also an exciting opportunity, right? To begin coming up with a plan for what does that space become. Does it become a baseball stadium? And I'm not saying I'm for or against it. Does it become an event center of some type, right? What can we do will make the biggest and lasting impact? That's not going to happen in a year, but it's going to begin to get us towards that.
Yeah.
The other challenges we face, and this is true with every community, we don't know what our budgets are going to look like. We can kind of guess year in and year out. We require more infrastructure maintenance, right? Maintain streets, replace sewer lines, replace water, things of that nature. Stuff just gets older. Equipment purchases like snow plows, fire trucks, things of that nature. That equipment doesn't get any newer, and you have to get it on a replacement cycle. So I think, and that's much more of a
we have some snow plows that need to be updated, right?
Correct. We have in about the year 1999 and 2000. This is what I understand, at least. The city bought a bunch of plows. Didn't really replace them, so now they should last you about 20 years.
Here we are.
And here we are 25 years later. They're getting more difficult to fix, and so we need to start replacing them. What I don't want to do is get into one where we just buy a bunch and then in 25 years stick somebody else with the problem, right? How do you get
whoever's the next person is trying to solve
how do you get on a better replacement cycle so that you're not just like home improvement stuff,
for
right?
Sure.
You got to build a budget.
If you tackle everything at once, you're in trouble. But if you go slow.
Correct. Yeah. And then it also eases that so that, you wouldn't want to replace your furnace, your washing machine, your dryer, and everything all at once, right? Ideally, you'd schedule it out and cycle it out and just budget for it. So
all the county buildings, all that stuff. When does stuff start happening there? So we voted on in the fall. We voted on
how to pay for it.
How to pay for it, right? Not if it's going to happen, but like where the money's going to come from. But what's the timeline? When does stuff actually start to move there?
Well, I believe they're still acquiring property.
Okay.
So there's still negotiations for that. At that point, they'll need to begin applying the kind of design to it. I would say shovels in the ground starting next year, 26.
Okay.
I think they were forecasting an opening in 28, 29, somewhere in that time frame. There'll be challenges with that because obviously you have to have those buildings essentially all done
before you can move into them.
Because then you just have a temporary jail somewhere, right? So you have to go that. So that would put the downtown development probably in that 29 to 30. So we're talking probably 4 or 5 years out.
Okay.
Before you notice significant changes over here. But that's the perfect opportunity to be planning for what's next step.
There's time. Yeah. That's a great opportunity, a really great opportunity.
You got to look forward, right? This I've told various people this, especially as I'm meeting them and especially as they have challenges. I don't care if you didn't get along with somebody 10 years ago or you had some beef about something. I care about looking forward, right? So if you'd made a determination you didn't want to do business in the city of St. Cloud because you didn't like X, okay. But what can we do to turn that page and say, okay, let's start over, start something new, and do it. Tackling any problem's got to be the same way. I mean, Hatfield and the McCoys, right? Remember they down in West Virginia, they just bickered forever and ever and ever, and they never would drop it. You got to eventually just drop something, and we can't live on disagreements of the past and why something didn't work. And it's the same thing as if something didn't work in the past. Yeah. Well, can we try something again? Yeah. And what can we do to keep trying? And it can be frustrating when people have long memories, right? And then a lot of people do have long memories where, the city did this to me 15 years ago, and now I'm still upset about it.
Yeah. Meanwhile, almost nobody from the city is still
exactly.
the people that were there.
Well, you don't like the image of the city, right? It's very easy to apply to this city, right? Like it's this monolithic structure that is just little cogs in the wheel, and that's how it operates. And sure, at times it feels like that's how things operate, but that's not the reality, right? And just because something happened, sometimes you just have to be the better person or bigger person and say, all right, let's move forward.
Yeah. I hope that as we can do that we can set, if people have grievances, that we can, set those aside as best we can and move forward well. Because there's, I think, a really, really bright future for St. Cloud. I said it too, I think, at the beginning of the podcast, and I've said it to so many people, but I feel really, really excited about the next handful of years here in St. Cloud. And I love being a part of this business community and seeing what's happening and seeing some of the development that's happening and some of the growth. It's really, really encouraging. So I hope more people can jump in and be a part of it. When we came downtown, what I said was like there's already people here. It's not like we're not coming down here because nothing's happening and we need to do something. We just wanted to be a part of all of the people that are already here that are doing their best to help push and help be a part of that. And so I hope more people jump in because the water's warm.
And the thing about that, we have different festivals and art crawls, right? And those are huge deals. And if you've never been to an art crawl in downtown in the spring or summer, and I think there's one coming up on Friday actually,
they're cold
for Bold and Bright.
Yep.
Or Cold and Bright, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
But come downtown, enjoy the activities. Remember, weekend parking is free in the ramps. So and there's a lot of ramps and most surface lots. So there's ways you can park. But at the end of the day, even if you spend $1.80 parking or $2 parking or $1 parking, it ain't the end of the world. Come downtown, enjoy what it has to offer. Just walk around. I mean, sometimes the most exciting things you do is just walk around and get a sense of it. And what you're going to find is you don't feel in danger. You'll feel vibrancy in certain areas. You'll see things you didn't anticipate you'd see. And it's very walkable, meaning it's not a long walk, and it's pretty short. And just find something to do. And there's a ton of things you can just stop and enjoy. And if you want to grab a beer somewhere, if you want to eat a burger or eat something else, there's all sorts of places you can eat down here too. I mean, there's a lot of draws, and it can be maddening when folks knock downtown, and then you ask them, when was the last time you're downtown? Oh, I don't remember.
Decades.
Yeah. It's that doesn't count as an answer then.
Yeah. Often things like art crawls and stuff like that. There are lots of times when I come down and I don't end up buying anything, right? But just being down and walking, I'm excited. I'm going to see friends and people that I know. I'm going to see vendors that I like and know, and I can encourage them. How's your day going? Just being a part of that and walking down and being a piece of that energy is really, really, really fun. So I think you're right. Bold and Bright is coming up, and come and see it. Come be a part of it. And then, and just this spring too. I think as we start unthawing a little bit, I'm really excited to see how kind of downtown unthaws a little bit too as we head into spring of 2026.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful in the
2025
coming weeks and months. Maybe we'll have news in the Herberger building.
Great.
I heard some inklings. I don't have anything I can share on it, but I definitely think there'll be some progress moving with that.
Awesome. When might we know?
I would say you're probably in a 3 to 6 month window here.
Okay. Very exciting. Well, we'll kind of keep our ears open. I'm excited to hear. It's been a lot of years now of it just kind of sitting empty, and putting something there would be a really huge step for us. That's really exciting.
A long time ago where the Ciotti's was, and I think Ciotti's was still open. I always thought it'd be really cool to have a tiki bar right there.
Okay.
Right, where it would kind of walk out and you could have I don't think the concept would work very well, but it was just trying to use some of that space a little better. There's a couple areas down here the space just seems a little screwy.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully we see some of that development. And, I know the Trade Home Shoes building was sold.
Really?
Yeah, there's a boutique going in there.
Really? So. Good. I called on that just in the last maybe handful of weeks. I'm happy that somebody's jumping in. Well, sweet. Mr. Mayor, I appreciate you coming on. Really, really appreciate it a lot. I'm thankful that you're here, and I'm thankful to see I feel in one regard I'm on the outside. I just like watching what's happening in the city, but then just I'm thankful to be a part of it in a small little way too. So thanks for coming and kind of grabbing the wheel here, and we're rooting for you and cheering you along. If you need anything, let us know. We'd love to support you and do what we can to make you successful, because we all need that and we all want that. So.
A rising tide raises all boats,
that's
right?
So absolutely. In closing, we always do our little unpaid ad. Is there someone, something, or some idea that you think deserves a little shout out today?
I was thinking about this, and I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. And I was going to shout this out during the Mayor did a podcast where he interviewed folks. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping I was going to get a restaurant. And so the restaurant that I'm going to give a shout out to is not downtown, but it's MT's on 8th.
Okay.
If you haven't been there, it's pretty much traditional bar food, but it's just got a certain ambiance and a certain vibe to it. It's a very blue-collar feeling bar and restaurant, but I would definitely give MT's a shout-out.
Love it. All right. And I think I'll do a restaurant today for mine, too. That's right. I think it's been a hot sec since I've done a restaurant, but and because we're downtown, I would like to introduce you to the very best French fry in St. Cloud, Minnesota, which is at a place called Greek Cravings. I don't remember the man's name that owns and runs it, but he is so delightful and so wonderful, and the service is great and the food is wonderful. So if you like gyros, or even if you don't like gyros and you're just a human being that enjoys a French fry, you should absolutely go and give Greek.
I would concur with that recommendation. All right. That's a very good place.
Good. Well, Mr. Mayor, thanks for coming on. Maybe at some point when, after Herberger's building or something, we could have you back on and just chat about some more of that fun development. But
I like that.
Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it a lot.
Thank you.